collision. As you can see behind me, we have some of the action vehicles that are about to take part in what I'm told is the biggest crash ever filmed on British television. Everything here is just about fake. We've built this road. It's actually just an old strip of tarmac somewhere in Chertsey. So the crash barrier, the grass, most of the vegetation have been brought here. And this is, I guess, the biggest television project I've ever been involved with in about 20 years.
Well, that was about 3 months ago, and here I am now sitting with the director of Collision, Mark Evans. Mark, take us through it all. Is this really how it all began, with a strip of cardboard and little models around a table?
What was it? Was it Hitchcock who said it's a big train set, a film set? And it's, you know, this is like the biggest scale electrics you could ever hope to get. But it has to be really well planned, obviously, everything. So cardboard models, scale models. We had a section of road, as you say, out in Chertsey and built everything for where the crash would take place, and this was really the blueprint for everything.
This comes out of the script, so you take the script and you start breaking it down, basically.
Well, actually, when I first read your script, and Jill handed me the script, there was a little map with it, because obviously even to write it, you had to work out who was coming from where and how the crash happened, right? And then it's writ large here. It goes from a little map to a little model to a huge stretch of road, and that's the most frightening bit, I think, for me, is when you realise the scale of the real thing and how you're going to, you know, put it all together. Once you get all these experts and the cinematographer and the Chris Ross, the cinematographer there.
And we just saw you actually a moment ago too.
Once you get all these brains and minds involved, it breaks down into its constituent parts and it becomes easier from the director's point of view.
That's you again there in the green coat.
Yeah, and the first assistant's there. It's very much a first assistant day, this, because he has to organise, Dominic there has to organise everything with the cinematographer, the stunt coordinator there, Derek Lee.
We'll see him later driving the white van.
Yeah. Who coordinates the stunts and takes part in the stunts, which is very brave of him. You can see the grass hasn't quite settled on the central reservation.
And so how long did you have to rehearse before you actually started shooting?
I think we had 3 days shooting the stunts here, and I think we had a day of rehearsal. Cars, even with good stunt drivers, they're sort of unpredictable in a way, so you have to just rehearse and hope that the rehearsal leads to something repeatable on the day, right? It's safe and spectacular at the same time. The basic problem we've got, of course, if you think about it, we can't shoot a 5-car pileup. Each part of the pileup has to be shot in separate elements, so each collision that leads to the big collision of the film is a separate event, and that's why this is so laborious. Look, there's 1, 2, 3 elements there. All those have to be sort of shot separately with new camera positions.
Some of them hidden in the undergrowth?
We hide some in the undergrowth. We try very hard to get a sense of what it feels like to be in the car when the collision happens. So a lot of the cameras were placed inside the cars, and when it was unsafe for them to be operated, they were put in places where we were shooting on remote control. So, but it's all about stopping distances, right? It's all about when the car can stop and not hit the camera. We did hit one camera, unfortunately, during the shoot.
But not the cameraman?
No, nobody was hurt, I have to say, which is great, which is the first objective. And then the second objective is to push it as far as you can to make it spectacular and fast and as real as possible.
How many days did you have here out on this track?
We had 3 days on the track with this created environment that you talked about, and then we tried to integrate this as much as we could with real driving on real roads, because I think that's the key, that you sort of feel that this bit of road has been arrived at from real roads. So it was trying to integrate this with real road shooting, which we did about 4 or 5 days on that.
Now those are the real actors, is that right?
Yeah, the great thing is to get the actors to meet the stunt in a way, so that where the actors can act, it's better that way.
And so now this is the actual day of the shooting. I remember everyone was pretty nervous at the time.
I think anybody who's not nervous on the first day of a 3-day stunt shoot is lying a bit, because it's, there's been a lot of preparation, a lot of expectation, and the actors are involved as well. So this is a low loader, which is used to allow the actor to act and not concentrate on driving. Although I have to say, Claire Rushbrook being a very good example of this, these actors were very happy also to drive the rail car on the railroad when asked upon to do so. And Rodrigo Gutierrez, our second unit director and cameraman, gave Claire Rushbrook the prize for the most daring driver on the railroad. She was fantastic. She was a very good driver. This is Chris Ross putting a camera in the back of a car to try and get that impression of being in the car with the action, with the actors, with the characters. Quite often it's a case of replacing the actor who's driving with a stunt person who's driving in a wig that matches their hair and a bit of their clothing. So it's all sort of little tricks, really. What we're trying to do here is get our stunt cars, travelling with real traffic around them. So there's the 3 cars that are involved in the crash there, but you'll notice that on either side of the road, whenever it's safe to do so, we've got other cars passing to get this idea of passing traffic.
Cameras covered in camouflage, stop them reflecting in the windows.
Yeah, exactly, to hide it.
And what's this machine here? It looks like the wires are using, aren't you, to pull the cars?
Well, there's 2 ways to do a collision. One is to have a stunt driver drive and just avoid just before the car collides, and the other one is to have this real impact that driving an unmanned car can give you if you put it onto cables and let the car go more or less at the speed it would be. So what we're doing here is hooking these cables up to the underside of the cars and letting them go for it, really, in terms of speed. Watch this. This is going at real speed, real time. One car crashing with another car, pulled by wires. No drivers involved at all. So those are the passing cars to give the impression of passing traffic. And here comes the...
Wow, that is quite an impact, isn't it?
That's more or less the impact it would... Did I tell you on the left there you see a sandbag? That's to stop the car travelling too far under the impact of the car that's coming in. We painted that out in post-production.
And presumably we must have had 2 of every single car. I mean, real ones, smashed up ones, same...
You know, the rules of filmmaking are all often perverse, so we had to smash up all our action cars before we started doing the series. So obviously, once we'd done the stunt in the first week of shooting, every time an actor turned up, a character turned up in their character car, we had to have another car which matched the car that we'd already smashed up. So we had 2 of everything, which, you know...
I'm so glad I never have to get involved in any of this, you know.
It's your fault, you write it all.
Let you take over. Wow, there it goes again. But what happens to the cables? They're painted out in some way?
We paint them out in post-production, yeah, so the cables are visible in the shot there, but not there or there. They're painted out by very clever...
And those reactions happen afterwards, presumably safe,
yeah.
The 2 people throwing themselves forward.
Yes, exactly. They're all little cheats, I suppose. I think the main thing that Jill Green, the producer, and I were really keen to do is to have that really metal upon metal impact, the sense of speed that you get when a normal car, not a James Bond car, but a normal car collides with another car. This is the only moment we went a bit James Bond with a tyre shot, which everybody said was straight to Top Gear. It's a Top Gear shot. This is a shot of the wheel. Most of our shots were to do with the characters and their points of view and the points of view of other characters seeing our characters collide with each other.
Cut!
Turn this car round. Turn it round! For God's sake, Joyce!
There's a Top Gear shot there. See? Little shot of the wheel. This is special effects just to give us a sense of... When the van actually went over, it created a hell of a lot of smoke, so we had to replicate that afterwards. That's lovely Lenora getting ready for her...
Fatal accident, yes.
I think a rather nervous Anwar, because he had to do a bit of driving himself. Now, sometimes you can't move the car, so in which case you move the camera and everything around the car. So we move the cars behind the action car, and we track the camera in at speed. So the car behind and the camera going in, hopefully, gives the impression of speed inside the car. So these are special effects, people just getting ready to have this little smoke pellets coming out.
Oh, and then the weather changed. Dear old isn't it lovely working in the United Kingdom?
That's the British problem, is that you've got 3 or 4 days on a stunt where you're trying to replicate the events of 10 minutes in the story, and it starts pelting down with rain day 3.
And presumably all the planning must go out the window then. I mean,
well, you have to keep shooting because it's so expensive, you know.
But the cars must behave differently on the tarmac now,
yeah.
And everything is faster and more dangerous.
And you try and get rid of the moisture on the road in post-production. That's the hardest thing to get rid of, water and smoke.
So matching up the shots from one day to the next must have been a complete nightmare.
So our special effects post-production people spent hours trying to get rid of that little bit of moisture on the left there. That was the hardest thing we had to get rid of. And again, cars, you know, even with the best drivers, are a little erratic. That car was supposed to collide with the...
that went wrong, didn't it, that last shot?
Had to go collide with the chassis of the van. And instead it went through, you know, because the impact is so strong.
And this is now having to correct it for continuity, yes?
Exactly. What we did then was to smash the car up a bit to look as if it had collided with the intended...
You move it physically back into the correct position and hope no one notices.
Exactly,
Did they?
I hope not. Oh, God, that's as disturbing as anything. Look how easily that buckles, though.
God, and people drive these things. Must be crazy.
So this is when the police car, the last car to join the collision, narrowly avoids the collision itself, but the last character car, as it were.
For
Here we
real.
go. Yeah. Pulls up behind the crash. See the water? It's still there. We just made out it was oil in the end. For the beady-eyed viewer.
And now to the biggest stunt of the collision.
Derek's going to explain this, and this is his pride and joy.
We start off in the production meetings, we talk about it, I come up with the ideas, because obviously I've turned loads of cars over, so I've got quite a bit of experience as far as that's concerned. But there's always loads of variables. You've got to take every single job on its own merits, given the fact that the van weighs about 3 tonnes, and our story dictates that I needed to come down on the driver's side. Normally, if you've got the luxury just to be able to turn it over whichever way you want, you prefer to do it passenger side down basically for a safety point of view. You know what's going to happen? We need to do some of that arm coat. I think it's just going to go straight into everything. If I can rip through that arm coat, it's all right. It's going to cut the even well. We're going to move the main concern, as far as I was concerned, is that I had to get it over the arm coat. I didn't want to put it down driver's side, because if any of that metal came through the window, obviously it could be really dangerous. So the first priority was getting it over the arm coat. The second priority was trying to keep it within the realms of the story.
Yes, okay.
I had to start right down the other end of the runway to get my speed up, and it's quite a sharp turn, so all that's going through my mind. First, second, third, get to 40 miles an hour. Once I'm up to speed, then it's concentrating on hitting that mark. Once you go up the pipe ramp, there's nothing else you can do. It's you're in the lap of the gods, really.
So now we're going to have a look at the actual stunt as it was filmed. This is just the thing with that wind.
Nerve-wracking for everybody. Because Derek's on his own in the van, right?
Yeah. God, I wouldn't want to drive that. Now we see it again, but from one of your cameras, I think locked off in the middle of the road.
That was one of our cameras.
And then we have the finished edit coming up next to put it all together. Oh, yes.
That's the one camera we did smash.
And there it is in the programme. Lovely weather again.
Start setting the crane and putting on a fuel radio, Mike, please. Your quality.
So we're now setting up for the aftermath of the crash. So this is all the cars placed in their position with the actors in the cars doing what they do best, which is pretending that the crash has just happened. The police guy's running out. Kate Ashfield's character driving up, and one by one the characters emerging from their cars.
You're going in, Adam.
It's Rodrigo Gutierrez on the crane shot.
Yes.
Very skilled operator, Rodrigo. That's a very hard shot to do.
Much of his work's in features.
Action. Get back in your vehicles. Stay in your vehicles. Get back.
Chris Ross, meanwhile, is going handheld to get a sense of being there, almost like a news crew experiencing this for the first time. I think audiences have got so used to handheld cameras, films like Bourne, for example, but also, in documentary series on television, that the handheld sort of device gives you a sense of immediacy and of being there.
And you did all this at the very beginning of the shoot, didn't you? You had to start with this. It was sort of was that your choice?
I think it was everybody's choice, because I think for a start the weather was getting worse. It was at the end of the summer, and also once you've shot this sequence, you know what you've got, and you've got a chance of maybe picking up the odd shot that would help you tell your story, because it's quite a complicated set of events that we're trying to represent. That's the handheld shot. That's the crane shot that Rodrigo was operating. Back at handheld. So it's intercutting the crane shot with a handheld shot, a point of view shot from inside the van. Big jigsaw, I suppose.
It's
really.
incredibly complicated.
It is are the suppose the missing link are the performances, the actors, right?
Indeed. And the dog. That's my dog.
And that's Sylvia Sims. And Phil.
And this is the death of Sylvia Sims.
Indeed. Now on the right, you can see the monitor attached to the camera. So you can see the shot as the camera moves in on the right there, and the actual performance on the left.
That's them at the moment of impact.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Joyce, are you all right? You should have grabbed hold of the steering wheel.
Nearly got us killed!
Me?
See the shot moving in. If you look at the monitor, Rodrigo operating the camera slowly in on a tracking shot as they play the scene.
Stupid! Shut up! Shut up!
And you replaced her for that moment with a stunt double.
At that point, there's a stunt double, but most of it is Sylvia.
Let's have a look at it.
Oh my God. Joyce, are you all right? You should have grabbed hold of the steering wheel.
Nearly got us killed!
I couldn't take it anymore. Her voice.
Stupid, useless. You're no good for anything. You're no good for my girl. You're just stupid! Stupid!
I'd saved her life, and it still wasn't good enough.
Stupid! Shut up! Stupid! Shut up!
Oh, snap.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
So, there you have it. We've seen all the constituent parts. Mark, many thanks for joining me on this DVD commentary. And I guess let's finish by just seeing the entire collision as it actually appeared in the programme.
The end of episode 5, right?
Yeah.